I know you're listening. You're here because something isn't right. Something feels twisted, upside down. Things don't add up. Hello, human. Welcome to our twisted universe. In this episode, we have a fascinating discussion with Pastor James Carner about connections between spirituality and current events, with your hosts Joe and Christy and special guest host Bob from Exit the Matrix. Elevate your spirit and support our twisted universe at asaricrystals.com. Hello, human.
Hi, and welcome to our Twisted Universe. Today we're going to be talking with James and Bob. Hi, guys.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Good
So,
to see you guys.
what was that?
Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. So I've been scrolling through TikTok and I came across James, and you have some really interesting topics that you've been discussing. And I was just kind of wondering how you got started on your TikTok channel.
Back in high school, I was in a band and I wanted to be a rock star. And the singer of this band was all in conspiracy theory nut job, right? And I wasn't awake then. And every time when we'd have downtime not playing, we'd just be discussing things. He would be telling me about books like the book from Bill Cooper, Behold a Pale Horse. And I'm like, well, what is this? He's like, here, read this. And after I read that book, I kind of like had that moment where the whole room goes back and farther away. It's like I'm 18 years old and my whole life crumbled before me. Are you telling me that like everything is corrupt, like every city, everything all around me? And he's like, yep, it is. And then I started doing some deep dives, and him and I were sharing research back and forth as we were in this band. And then the band broke up, and I started just continuously trying to uncover as much information as I possibly could. And from there, I developed a lot of research into with AOL channels back then, because that was in the mid 90s. So back then, there was a lot of people who were sharing information that wasn't being censored. So we were all recording and cutting and pasting, recording and keeping and grabbing all of that information up until 2001 when 9/11 happened. And that's where I immediately, was telling everybody in my family while they were all glued to the TV for 6 months straight. I was saying, this is all on purpose. And this was all done by, and then I was pointing out who, and they just thought I was absolutely insane. So after that, I just kind of like took a step back, built a website, started putting it all up on the website, and just not really telling anybody around me because no one would listen to me anyway. And then I noticed that my website, because I'm pretty much a tech geek, but my website was getting like 50,000 hits a month, and I wanted to find out where those IPs were. And it turns out 49% or 49 out of the 50,000, 49,000 were all the Pentagon. So that's when I knew I'm being watched. And my website was a threat. And when anytime I ever mentioned like Jeff Rents or anything else on my website, it would get like shut down for some reason. And so I was fighting back and forth with the hosting provider, had to move my website 3 or 4 different times until I finally found a place where nobody really took me down. And then I just kind of decided to take a step back after I had a son. My son was deaf and autistic, and that took most of my time. But during then and building a business, I was continuously researching. And it wasn't until last year where I got the okay from my prayers and my God up above. He said, okay, now's the time. Go ahead and start spreading all the stuff you've learned. I go, okay, open up a TikTok. Immediately within not even, 2 weeks, I had 25,000 viewers. And I was like, I don't know, is this good? I have no idea. And then all of a sudden it just started to snowball. And people now are asking me all kinds of questions like, when's the world going to end? Who is this? Who is that? And it's really hard to answer their questions because I don't even know, but I do know who runs the world and what their agenda is. And thanks to all the research and the time that I spent on doing that, I became I would say an amateur private investigator. I'm able to uncover things that people haven't. I was the person who uncovered who Q really was, the first Q on 4chan. Then I uncovered who the second Q was on 8chan. And I've been able to uncover all of this stuff using discernment, using prayer, and my research capabilities. And here I am now spreading the truth. And I have a podcast called Cause Before Symptom on Podbean, and everything that I put up on TikTok, I put there on a more serious note, and it's been growing ever since.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bob, what got you started on your channel?
Well, honestly, since about beginning of my freshman year, I started really getting into researching everything that was outside the box. I always was just totally fascinated with, anything that was out of the norm, ghosts and UFOs. And, I actually did, my sophomore year, I did a project on the Bermuda Triangle for my English final, and everybody's just sitting in class, like not knowing what in the heck I was talking about, and I was doing a whole long project about the Bermuda Triangle. And, I was already reading books and into mysteries like that, studying the Bible code. And I was reading Nostradamus and Edgar Cayce and pretty much any of that type of stuff I could get my hands on. So been ever since then till now, just all those fringe things you can imagine in ancient history, and just love subjects like that, and connecting the dots. That's my favorite thing to do, because I study such a vast array of things, and then I like to pull up high and then kind of look at it all and start to connect it, and I don't know, that's what I enjoy doing. So I'd say I started my Exit the Matrix Facebook page probably about roughly 6 years ago. And it's always grown pretty steadily, and except up until the last 2 years, it's been pretty limited. So we've been kind of stale there, but I've been starting to work on a YouTube channel also. So
That's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely been awake since probably, I'm gonna say 92, with medicines and things like that. Cause I grew up I was in Portland, Oregon. So hippie, herbs and remedies and things like that. And, Rwanda happened, and obviously we knew that wasn't right. And then I saw William Cooper video and had the book back then. So that opens so many rabbit holes. If you haven't read that book, Pale White Horse, right? Or Pale Horse.
Behold a pale horse. Yeah.
Yeah. That one. That one got me going for sure.
Yeah.
And I've been psychic, so it's like using discernment, getting messages from spirit, and Joe and I together, we kind of magnified it. Yeah. I'd say definitely. And so a lot of people started coming to us, especially in 2020 when things started getting weird, maybe just a little bit before. And they were scared, and they were waking up, and they didn't know what was going on. And so we kind of were always there to support people through that awakening. And we decided, I don't know, was it 2021? We started our channel. 2022.
Somewhere in there.
Just right around that time frame, we thought we would be a resource to help people, bring information forward, help support them through the awakening process. And that's how we got started.
Awesome.
Yeah, I started when I was a kid with Chariots of the Gods back in the early 70s.
That'll do it.
I've been
That will do it.
Eric Von Däniken.
Oh man, don't read that if you're a beginner Christian. Whoa, dude, you'll be like, oh God, am I in the right religion here?
I grew up in Sasquatch country, so
Yeah,
about
that's same with me. Yeah, Pacific Northwest, right?
Yeah.
saw my
Yeah.
first UFO when I was like, I was 10.
Okay, yeah.
Portland, there was
Well-
one over on the hill, Mount Tabor in
Yeah.
Portland. And
Mm.
I, like my dad, because my dad was into CB radio.
Mhm.
The radio was going nuts all night long about this object that was hovering over Mount Tabor.
Yeah.
And so as multiple people saw it. It was pretty,
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to wake me up from that either. I used to live on Mount Tabor, and we saw all kinds of interesting lights. But I think the one UFO that really woke me up to the fact that, one, this, if it is man-made, nobody knows about this, and two, it is anti-gravity because it made no noise and it hovered, and it was like the size of a football field. It was all metal all the way around with lights all the way around, and it just hovered really slow and spun like that. And it was during the witching hour. It was on a Friday night after I dropped my then girlfriend off at her house and was heading home. And as I was watching that thing, the feeling of fear just was overwhelming because you're not used to it. It takes you back, and it makes you just, it probably puts you in that crazy realm, where nobody's going to believe you anyway, because that's just, when you see something that makes no logical sense, you're the nut job. And I embraced it, and I said, okay, fine. And eventually, I knew that this kind of information would come out, and I just didn't know if, all the stuff that I've researched would be a good service, but I think it has been.
the time has come.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I like
Bob, you've seen a UFO?
I've seen some I've had some paranormal experiences. Once about 20 years ago in Colorado, my wife and I, we were, pretty young and only been married for a couple of years. We were driving in a back road kind of near Boulder, Colorado, and all of a sudden this just huge green like ball or something went right across over the road, right over our head. And it happened so quick. It was just like, did we just see what we think we've seen, And I've had paranormal experiences also. When I was a kid, next door neighbor committed suicide next door and had a lot of paranormal activity after that in our house. So
Interesting.
Yeah, you kind of wake up after all that for sure.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't swamp gas. You were in Colorado.
yeah, swamp gas on Uranus, huh?
Right.
The weather balloon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Chinese weather
Oh
balloon.
my God. Oh my God. Don't get me started on that one.
Okay, so things are really weird right now. What do you guys like? What the heck is going on? What the comet? I mean, what are you guys hearing?
Oh, Bob, why don't you go first?
Are you talking about the upcoming
Oh, sorry, the eclipse.
total
The
eclipse?
eclipse. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there's a comet too. I'm gonna have to
Oh, it's the
process that
eclipse.
one.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you guys follow the Health Ranger Mike Adams on Rumble at all, but he made a good point today. I was watching a video of his, and he was talking about how crazy it is in Texas right now. How some of the counties are like telling people to like stock up on like survival supplies and food and stuff, and and he was talking about, he's like, what is with this, like a total eclipse that's going to last maybe 2 minutes, and all this talk about needing to stock up. But he started digging into the science of it, and he was saying that, the gravitational pull that the sun and the moon have on the earth, well, when they line up like that, it can like cause possible issues with the earth, with our electromagnetic field and such.
Mm-hmm.
And that I get he thinks what they're truly worried about is that there could be earthquakes caused by it, because with the shifting of the electromagnetic field, with those being, with those two planetary bodies being lined up, that it could allow some of the plates that are typically kind of held in place by gravity and such, allow them to be able to move around a little bit, and that could cause earthquakes. So, I mean, I thought from a scientific point of view, that was a pretty good explanation. It could explain why they're kind of acting weird about that, but that's all I know. Anything past that, it's just speculation at this point.
Well, the exact same thing happened in 2017, 7 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it crossed another part of America, and I actually witnessed it myself. But one thing we did not witness was any collateral damage after. After it was done, everyone packed up and went home. They were just camping, watching it. Now, we can't say that this one is more powerful. I don't know. I haven't done any research on that. But what I can say is what is it? Imran Rakam, I can't remember, Obama's right-hand guy, said, never let a good crisis go to waste. And so this would be the perfect opportunity for HARP and energy weapons, earthquake weapons, all the stuff that we've had since the 60s, just to, let's say, I don't know, stop an election and declare a national emergency, do cleanup, and we'll worry about the elections later. We've got a problem here. And that's kind of what I'm envisioning, is seeing that it's going to be used as an opportunity for the elite to continue to keep the control mechanism going.
I do, if you guys don't mind, I do have actually another thought on this. This is kind of from the other day. Apparently Russia has successfully launched satellite EMP devices. And so that was let out into into our news media. So it would be a great cover, wouldn't it, for let's just say an EMP, not really known who could have possibly do it, might strike America during that eclipse,
right?
And then there'd be perfect other nations to blame on that to escalate world war.
Right.
Just saying.
Well, they want to unalive some of us because, according to Dick Cheney, we are called useless eaters. And if you remember, I remember when the Georgia Guidestones were introduced to me back in the 80s, or in the 90s, but they were erected in the 80s, and they had 5 different languages, all saying to maintain humanity under 500 million. And that is what Mother Earth, Gaia, whatever you want to call her, it wants, instead of this, abundance of people. Yet if you do some research, you can actually fit every single human being in Texas comfortably on 1 acre. So I don't believe in the whole depopulation agenda, but I do know that there are religious people at the top of the top that want to do this for their gods, and their gods have said, this is what we require for your power, is we require blood sacrifice. So if they can't have their World War III, they're going to get us through some way or another in order to appease their gods. And that's what this really is all about, in my opinion, like the cause before the symptom. Not only do we always fight for holy wars, but we're always going to fight for holy wars, trying to figure out whose God is bigger than the other God. And that's the scariest part, because the Vatican are a pretty big organization with a lot of money and a lot of power. And they think that their God is bigger than the Judaism God. And the Judaism God thinks that their God is bigger than the Islam God. And so all of these together are being used and manipulated as we get thrown back and forth like the peasants we are, until they can usher in what each one wants. And all of their written scripts represent a king to come in and rule the world, while their church, it takes all the glory and power. So that's what scares me, is it's all religion. And I want to expose that as much as I possibly can on my show.
Can I add something to that, what he was talking about?
Yes.
Sure.
So, there's also a theory out there for those that delve into the Anuna, the Anunnaki, quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And in the ancient Sumerian cuneiform, they described how with each change of a constellation, being like the main constellation that we were in, that would change what family was in control of Earth at the time. And so in the past, you had the two main families, Enlil and Enki, the serpent and the eagle, and those two families that the power would switch every time there was a change in the constellation. And of course, we're getting ready to go into Aquarius. We're moving out of Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
And so it could be that there's a struggle going on with these extra dimensional or interdimensional royal families that are tussling over who's going to have control going into this new procession. And it was talked about that in the last power struggle. It was supposed to be the Enlilite family was supposed to rule, but the Enki family under the son Ra Marduk wrestled control away from Enlil, Yahweh, Jehovah, and he's been the one in power since. And he's the eye on the top of the pyramid, Marduk, Ra. That's the all-seeing eye. It's the eye of sorry, it's right on top of my head.
Eye of Horus.
Yes. And there's a reason why there's a Baal, the shaft of Baal, the large obelisk in all of the capitals in the Western worlds.
Right.
Egyptian. Because that's his symbol. That's Baal's shaft. Baal was another one of the archetype of Ra Marduk. So.
Yeah. And again, that's religion. And I'm so glad you mentioned the two families, because that's in the heavenlies. There are two families that are fighting it out. And on the earth, there are two families that are fighting out. In fact, 500 years ago, I uncovered a ritual that happens every 500 years. It's called the breaking of the spears. And there are two families that actually run this whole entire world for their interdimensional beings. You can call them fallen angels, call them ETs, whatever. But these two families believe in them. They talk to them, they worship them, and they do what they say. And the two families are the Orsini's and the Breakspears. And 500 years ago, they were called the Welfs and the Ghibellines. And 500 years ago, they were fighting it out. And it was the Breakspears who were the ones who controlled the Dark Ages. And the Orsini's are more of a progressive family. They like to go explore. And the Breakspears are more of a conservative family. They like to usher everyone into their peasant cities and leave the forest alone and let Earth regenerate. And that's what's happening right now. Again, the Orsini's are being taken down by the Breakspears, and the Breakspears are going to usher in a new, quote, dark age. And what that looks like, it'll be technology running things for man. Man will be again unalived to where there's 500 million, and we will be in smart cities, and it will be illegal to go hiking, camping, hunting, any of that stuff. And that's where I think is happening right now, is the breaking of the spear ritual, where Pepe Orsini or Domenico Napoleon Orsini is going to break the spear and hand it over to Henry Breakspear, who is the leader of the China-Russia BRICS campaign. So it's really two financial systems. They're fighting it out. The Orsini's control the Federal Reserve, and the Breakspears control BRICS. And from when I did an interview with Russell-J. Colin Gould, who uncovered the real information on who controls America, he was the one that was telling me that what we're witnessing is the power and money is moving from the west to the east. And so that is the rise of the dragon. That's what we're seeing. And I'm just trying to put all of these puzzle pieces together to get everybody ready for the next, world order, because there's always been a new world order. These families have always ran the world for thousands of years. So all we have to do is recognize, oh, okay, it's a prison system, and try to figure out how we can break out of this.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
an existential crisis to realize that everything you know is a lie.
Yeah. Oh my God. What were you going to say, Bob?
I was gonna say, yeah, I mean, you can see that even from the Garden of Eden, that tussle between, Enlil, like he's Yahweh in the Old Testament, and the serpent who's Enki in the Garden of Eden. Um, you can see that now because, like you mentioned, China and the Eastern realms, and not only that, but look at what's going on with the border. Remember, a lot of South America and Latin America was there was a battle there between the eagle and the serpent families too.
Right.
If you look at the Mexican flag, it's got when Spain wiped out the Mayans and Aztecs, their flag was the eagle with the snake in its talons,
Right.
and you got the rise of the feathered serpent right now, which is um China right now is the dragon family. They're the serpent part of the serpent family.
Yeah.
But now you're having an invasion of the serpent lands up into America, into the eagle lands. And so this has always been a battle between these two families. But there is a wild card too that's always on the side, and that is Nanar Sin, who the Muslims worship as Allah. He was also a son of Enlil, actually. He was an Enlilite, but when his cities were destroyed, Sodom and Gomorrah, after that, he basically turned on his own family, and that's why there's been a rift between the Muslims and the Judeans ever since. And so he's kind of a wild card in all this because he's an Enlilite, but he's kind of working against his own family right now. And as you know, the black cube in Mecca ties in with all this too, Saturn worship and all that. And that's all under his power, the black cube is. So it's interesting to note that you've got almost kind of a three-way struggle going on right now if you bring the Muslims, into that also.
Yeah, I believe that the Muslims are going to be in control and in power within the next, probably up to by 2030. And Christianity is going to be the next target. I believe we're going to see the Vatican pretty much go down. I don't know how or why, but all of their past sins are catching up to them now. And Christianity, it says in the Bible, because I look things from a Christianity point of view. I am a pastor, but I'm not a theologian. But it does say that during Revelation that the Christians' heads will get cut off. And there's only one religion out there that actually states how they do it through their Muslim sword. I forgot the name of it, but I do believe if we are coming into what would be considered the Christian tribulation, then it would make sense that the Muslim faith would rise up against the Christianity faith. And I believe that Christianity is already on its way out the door anyway. A lot of people are moving away from religion altogether and moving towards a more of a Gnostic belief system. So it's very interesting times we live in. Whether we're in the tribulation or not, I could not tell you, but I do know that there is a fight for our worship. And you could call worship actually job, us doing a job, but they first got to wipe out a lot of us. And that's what's happening is I would say a genocide towards humanity to usher in something that's coming. And what's coming to me, it's their king, whoever is worshiping a spiritual God, they think they're returning. And it could be like what Bob was saying, the return of the Anunnaki. And some could say, well, that would be the Antichrist. Well, all of the religions all have different names for them, but they all have the same story, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even Lord of the Rings follows the Bible. So it's quite interesting to see what we're happening. And we live in very, very exciting times.
Yeah.
Do you think it's revelations happening now in our lifetime? Or
me personally, I don't. I think what we're witnessing is a forced revelation. It's like the dark entities are trying to push it to make it happen. And I think they missed their window in 2017. I believe that 2017 showed all the signs of the Antichrist coming, but the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, all of them, they were too late, in my opinion. And so 2017 up until now is supposed to be the 7-year tribulation. You got to understand, from a Christianity point of view, again, I'm not telling people that I'm right and you're wrong. You do you, I'll do me. But from what I understand, the every 100 years, the devil has to have his son ready to go at a moment's notice, because the Bible says that no one knows the day or the hour. So he's always pushing to get his son out and get his Armageddon, get the tribulation going, his big fight, with Jesus. And so I think they're forcing it now, and they're too late. And so we're just going to see them have a temper tantrum between now until 2030, till the Breakspears finally take control. And then what that will look like is a world without oil, a world without other kinds of technologies that pollute the earth. So that's what I see is happening.
You're saying our technology is going to collapse and go backward, or
no, won't collapse, go backward. It'll be more towards in the cities and used to do agriculture, but not human beings. We're talking like robot and AI cities, period. And because they don't need us as much anymore, because a robot can replace a worker, right? They would only need us for really hard stuff that robots can't do, which would be to mine for gold or things like that, because some things robots just can't do. So they don't need 8 billion people on this planet to sustain life. So therefore, they're only going to use the 500 million in the cities, and they will all have their own jobs. And according to Klaus Schwab, you will own nothing and be happy. And they're on that projection towards the Breakspears utopia.
That kind of explains the push towards transhumanism and merging humans with machines, because then
we're whiny workers. We whine. Yeah. We want too much, right? We want healthcare. We want to raise, right? I mean, that's what they think. So they're like, we don't need you, like Dick Cheney, you're useless eaters, So they're just thinking of themselves and their God and their religion, and they're ushering what they think will be best for mankind in the future.
But the useless eaters, I think that I'm not a student of the Communist Manifesto. I've never read it, but I've heard it used in context with that Marxism term. And it's interesting. Yeah, and then if they succeed in merging everyone with technology, it's like, oh, Joe's not exactly happy in his job. We'll just turn the happiness dial up so he's really happy with his job.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not far off. We're just years away from that. If not, the Pentagon and DARPA have already created that.
Right. We'll click into
whatever they create, they're at least 30 to 1,000 years ahead in technology than what we are today. They only release a little bit at a time because they don't want to, ruin the money making scam.
We're hackable animals, right?
That too. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember Klaus Schwab's number 2, who was saying that the human genome is hackable. It's easy. It's easy now. You can take a laptop right now with a Bluetooth connection, and anyone who took the jibber jab, you can hack into their genome, and you can literally start messing around with their DNA. I don't know how, with what code, but they can do it now.
Point in human history that we have enough biological knowledge and we have enough computing power, and all you need in order to systematically hack millions of people is just the data. That to hack people means to know people better than they know themselves. To somebody in San Francisco, in Beijing, knows more about you than you know about yourself.
That's interesting. I found this app called Z app. It's a frequency, and I just played the Morgellons frequency, which is that technology, weird fibrous thing. I don't know. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, Morgellons disease. Yeah.
I think it's a living organism, but it's also mixed with technology. And I didn't see anything, but I had a weird smell in my nose. And we know the worm queen. And she said when worms die off or whatever, you could almost smell it. And I played the frequency and all for Morgellons, and all of a sudden it was like this weird like burn smell. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And I really think that we might all be infected with something like that. And it made the technology may already be in us. All of it.
That's the nano dust. From I believe we started spraying the nano dust in the 80s, I think, and those had the magnetic capabilities to attach to each other and make these little long worms, and some people's bodies just could not handle it, and that's where they were scratching, and they had all kinds of problems with Morgellons. And it was proven, in my opinion, through, I forgot the doctor's name, where he was surgically removing these for people, and he showed that they die when they come out of the body, but whatever they are made of silicon, and they're made of some sort of a nano computer technology.
So this isn't a plug for Zia, but go ahead and download it. It's free.
Yeah, find out if you have Morgellons. Bob, you've heard of Morgellons. It was pretty popular.
Yeah, definitely. Remember graphene pencils you wrote with in school? Yeah. That type of stuff is one of the key ingredients in that. And they've figured out how to use that in conjunction with nanoparticles, such as you were talking about. And there's also something called androgel. And those are some different things that work together in the body, and they essentially self-replicate, and they make antennas in the body. And they use the body as a source of electricity to empower them. And then essentially they're like data points, they're like data nodes in your body at that point. And of course they don't have the systems in place yet, but their next generation internet, the internet of everything, is going to be able to completely build a net over the whole earth. And everything will have these nodes in them. Every living thing will be directly connected in data wise in with this internet of everything. And I know a lot of the people on the right like to champion Elon Musk, but his satellites that he's putting up there are part of this Skynet being built that will bring us the internet of everything, because it couldn't all be done just through the cable lines and all that. This has to be a net built over the earth, if you get my meaning on that.
Yeah.
So
I agree 100%.
Yeah,
the nanotechnology was just in the 80s and 90s was just the beginning to see what it will do in the human body, to see who will accept it, right? And they have to slowly put it into our food stream and into our bloodstream in order for us to get used to it and allow our bodies, and our future generations to get used to it. And I do believe that the vaccine, which is just an experimental mRNA drug therapy, gene therapy drug, that also had Bill Gates patented 060606, and that had an actual actual processor and an antenna. So I think they are now at the point where we all have our own IP address, a walking IP address, and that information is being fed into a little tiny hard drive, a little tiny solid state hard drive that was assembled together through this nanotechnology. And that is going to bring in the carbon tax credit system, where if you are against the government, they can turn your credits down and make sure you don't make enough money. And that's a whole another rabbit hole to go down. But I think we have the technology now to be walking computers.
Yeah. I would contend that we are at least part of the way into Revelation. Because the reason I say that is because I've been doing a lot of research on the image of the beast. where it talks about how mankind was basically tricked to worship the image of the beast.
Right.
And so a lot of people don't realize, they think the beast is, Lucifer, Satan, but the beast is man. The man is the human avatar is a lower dimensional being. It's a vessel that allows the spirit from a higher realm to come into the third dimension. So when we come into the human body, we're essentially immersed in with the beast body, the beast system. And the reason I say that, we are the number of the beast. It even says, the number of
It's a number of man.
the number of man is
Yeah.
the
666.
beast is 666. And our 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 6
Right.
neutrons. And
Right.
so what they're doing is they're building right now they're building they're collecting data on us right now, like, all these social media sites, anything that you're tied into, they're collecting data on you 24/7. Well, the reason they're doing that is because this AI supercomputer that's powered with quantum computers is collecting all that data. It is building a consensus of humankind. It's like becoming like a hive mind of humankind. And it's and those quantum computers can they're just like string theory, where you can have one particle on one side of the universe, it can connect with another. And these computers do that, but they can connect into other dimensions. So I question if that allows portals where entities in other dimensions now have access through these quantum computers into this AI. And what they're essentially trying to do is they're trying to build a new god to rule over man, and that will be this AI supercomputer god. And right now they're just collecting all the data on humankind to build that mind, that super mind. And then that's where they'll get people to worship the image of the beast. Our bodies being the beast, the 666, but it's an image of us. It's like a artificial, copy of us, but it's being super powered, like a god, having the ability to, with the internet of everything, once that's all running live, they'll be all connected into all of us, and we're all connected into this hive mind supercomputer. And at least that's my theory. So that's why
it's a good theory. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, we're all just coming up with theories. It's not like I'm right, Bob's right, you guys are right. We don't know. We're all just come together trying to figure it out, and that's the key here. But when you were talking about that, I mean, wouldn't it make sense? And going down your theory, Bob, is they do have electromagnetic frequencies where they can actually, now they have a van can park in front of your house and put a thought in your head. They can do that now.
Right.
Whether they can read your thoughts, I'm not sure, but I know they can actually create a voice where you can hear God. Okay. Now imagine the AI collecting all this stuff in your social media, and it knows everything about you. It knows you were just at the dentist, and then this still small voice comes in and says, James, I just think you're a great guy. I love you. It's like, what? That's where we're going towards that God worship part, because people will believe that this is God. And Jesus said, well, my children will know my voice. Well, the way that I communicate with God is through my own mind. It's not through an external voice. But what if they're able to take that internal voice that I've had all the time with Jesus and actually switch it on me and say, everything that I've been learning from the Bible was wrong? I mean, that's really playing God, taking someone's faith. I am not a turn or burn kind of pastor. I don't like converting people. I don't like to have my scalps when I show up to God and say, I got this many questions. I really appreciate everybody's journey. And I think everyone's journey is a beautiful story. I'm going to leave it at that. You guys have your journey. I'm just a person who has knowledge. And if you're interested in hearing about it, fine. That's how I am as a pastor. But when it comes to forcing something or pushing someone into their belief system, I have a problem with. I have a big problem with, because that is infringing on someone's fate and their free will. And I do believe the God that I worship has a problem with people forcing on free will. And to put this kind of technology into man's hands, bad combination. because we have a horrible track record of ruining everything we put our hands on. And God help us if we ever really do get to space, because we'll go out there and we'll be the bad guys. Believe me, we will.
I wouldn't doubt.
Perhaps we're being, we haven't done it yet, although we try. Perhaps we're being kept here. This is like a prison planet because we're like public enemy number one in the universe.
Yeah.
They know.
They do.
Our free will has already been taken from us. And everywhere you look, you are being converted, but it's not towards God. Every music, every visual, TV, commercial, movie, books, everything we have access to, even like the general consensus, like if you're in a group of people, especially in, certain areas, like from where we're from, you can't even talk about God or being a Christian or anything like that. You will be shunned completely.
Yeah,
and so free will is not there anymore. We don't have it.
You can't say a word in any context.
No.
Right.
You could honestly go back to the Garden of Eden and say, and I'm basing this more off the Sumerian cuneiform version of Genesis, that we never have had free will, that they figured out a way to trap souls into human avatar bodies to do the work for the gods. Like, I mean, that's essentially what the Sumerian version was, is that, that, and Enki, the serpent, he basically told Adam and Eve, like, look, this is what you truly are. And your spirits come from here, but you're in this body now that we fashion this, or that we hybridized. And that was what, infuriated Enlil, at least in the Sumerian version of the Garden of Eden. And that's when he kicked Adam and Eve and the serpent out of the Garden of Eden, because he basically wanted just simple, almost robotic workers that were, simple-minded, just smart enough to do the work for the gods, but not smart enough to be one of them. And
like the Greys.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
Whitley Strieber in his book Communion explained this whole scenario, that they've been collecting and harvesting our souls for thousands of years. And apparently the moon has something to do with that. And that's all they wanted, was to create a race of workers. And apparently in the past, before the flood, maybe we rebelled and they left. And now I believe we're seeing a return of those gods.
Yeah, definitely. I think they've always been here, at least some of them, and kind of controlling the strings from behind.
Yeah.
And it is very interesting to note that all of these ancient texts, it doesn't matter, the Old Testament, the Zoroastrians, the Hindus, the Egyptian mythologies, the Greek, all of them, all the Gnostics, they all still have essentially the same basic story. It's just from different angles, or it's painted with different conceptualizations of God and spirit, and essentially who these beings are that rule this realm.
Right. The plot is always the same.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's up to us to piece it together. It's up to us. No one's here to save us. No one's here to save us. I'm sorry to say. I mean, spiritually, I can say through my religion, Jesus is going to save us. But up until that time, we live under the rule of a God, a like God, not the God, but a God. And whatever that means, you can tell, you can really tell, because the way that man is to man is awful. Nobody really cares about loving their neighbor. When I talk about loving their neighbor, it means the neighbor that is the one who is sawing at 3 a.m, the one that does annoying things. And we're not practicing that enough to where we just, give them the benefit of the doubt and still love them anyway, because They're a human being going through whatever they're going through, and we are judge first, ask questions later, just like our judicial system. So we really need to steer that back and get out of that. And I do believe that we have the power to take over these entities, whatever they are, whatever religion is true or not. And it's up to us to come together with, I guess Bob Marley was saying, one love. That's it. That's all it takes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, absolutely. Yeshua was trying to empower humankind, and was trying to tell, I mean, he told us, you can heal, you can cast out demons, you could even move mountains, you can even do greater than I. He was trying to awaken the Christ within us, and of course they made a religion out of that,
Maybe,
and that was all controlled by Rome. I have a lot of, family and friends that are Christians, and they don't understand that the Council of Nicaea was the power, the power brokers of that time. They were the leaders of the church, the early church. They were leaders of the Judean synagogues, were actually involved in that too. They were at that round table, and so was the Roman elite, rulers, of the time, the politicians and power brokers. They were all involved in that Council of Nicaea. So it like you mentioned earlier, James, definitely a lot of stuff was, taken in or added out, added in or taken out or mistranslated, because it was to disempower people from what Yeshua was truly trying to teach us. And the world he was talking about, and the creator of all he was speaking of, his Father, that he was basically saying, look, he's not of this realm, he's outside this realm, and he's got a mansion with many rooms. I've found a lot lately. I've done a lot of deep dives into people that have OBEs and NDEs, near death experiences and out of body. And it is interesting that it doesn't matter what religion these people are, when they have those experiences and they've been clinically dead, but they've come back, they're brought back to life.
Yes.
They all say that on the other side, they're told that there's like no religion, really. That's all an illusion, that we're all one with the source, with God. And that here on earth, mankind's just been trying to conceptualize God in so many different ways. And there are these entities that have taken advantage of man and set themselves up as gods. And it was interesting earlier, James, you made a comment about how they like almost like parasites, they like absorbing our energy, right? And stuff. It is interesting to note how, like in ancient Sumer, they had specific city states. Like this was Inanna Ishtar city, this was like Marduk Ra city, this was Enki city and Lil city. And it was interesting that they always had like their ziggurat in the middle of the city state, their temple to that god. And then of course everybody would worship that god in the city. And then supposedly these gods would bestow, teachings and power and everything on this influence over the city to help it grow and be strong against its neighbors.
Right.
So it is almost as if these beings were setting themselves up as like gods, and they were absorbing that prayer energy. Just like these parasites that feed off of us, like, the Gnostics call them the archons, Christians call them demons, and the Muslims call them
jinns, right?
But there is some kind of interdimensional beings that are like parasites that feed off of our energy.
No doubt.
And their favorite energy for some reason is the trauma-based energy that gets released. For some reason, they love that even more than like the excitement they can suck out of their football fields and all of that kind of stuff,
I wanted to take a step back when you're mentioning the NDEs. I too went down a rabbit hole with NDEs, and I think I own like 20 books of them, and thousands and thousands of countless people with their stories. And not all of them that I found were all non-God. A lot of them in the books that I've read were, people did see Jesus or meet the Holy Ghost or meet their friends and family and say, well, they're busy. Holy Ghost, Jesus are doing something. They're all different stories, all different, but they all have one thing in common: is a tunnel. That's 80% of all of them saw a tunnel and they went through. So, and they all also 80% of them felt this unbelievable love, like, it's better than any drug anyone could ever take. It was just, they crave it. And when they get back in their body, they want to go back to it. And I also do think that a lot of these books are written in the eye of the beholder and in a bias. Like, if I'm going to write a book about NDEs and my spiritual belief is Christianity, I inadvertently am going to be looking for people to support Christianity. So it's really tough to find those books that take all of that out, all of the politics out, and just focus right on to the truth to get to the heart of the data. And I'm a data guy, right? Which is bizarre because I think I'm on the low spectrum or high spectrum of autism, but it's all about the bias. And we should always, when we get information, we should really read it and find out if the author has that bias, and then go, okay, cool. We know what they're steering towards. I don't have to, and don't get mad at them. Just eat the meat off the bone, discard the rest. It's all good.
I like that.
Yeah.
And we should read the Bible this way too, guys. There's 3 translations to the New Testament, 3 different ones. And the Catholic Church picked the Egyptian Alexandria version, instead of the shepherd's version, the poor version of the people out in the field who, aren't being ruled over them. Why didn't we go pick up that version and take a look at it? Well, the Catholic Church said, well, there's a lot of inconsistencies. Can you point any out to us? Well, we don't have time for that. So we should all just stop our biases, stop our religion, stop trying to, be right. Because we're all wrong. If the truth really is subjective, then that means I'm wrong, you're wrong, Bob's wrong, we're all wrong. We're all wrong. But the good news is we all have that one love to come together and try to find out, well, what is the truth? And that's what brings people together. And that is, in my opinion, loving your neighbor.
Yeah. I think that's why we're such a pain in the backside to these the ones that want to rule over us.
Yeah.
Because humans are very curious.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that is been maybe either the downfall of humanity or the positive of humanity. The dual, I guess you could say it's dualistic, because we get ourselves into a lot of trouble because of that. But our curiosity is also what makes us always search and want to know things, and so we will always perennially be a problem for them because of that, unless they can just totally figure out a way to entrap conscious energy into their metaverses and stuff, which is what they would love to do.
Oh yeah,
build a matrix within the matrix,
Yep.
And I think they hate the fact that some of us just cannot be controlled our thinking.
Yeah.
Why do you suppose we're like divergent? Like, why are we so left to bang with all that? Like, some people are just, we have that knowledge. Do you think it comes from like a spiritual connection, or do you think that it's, just where you were brought up? Or, I mean, how is it that all of us in different parts of the country all kind of feel the same way about that?
Yeah.
And
I meet people that try and relate the other ways, and it's like gibberish to me. I'm like, how does that make sense to you? That's my question.
Well, we're all children. Let's first get that out in the front. We're all kids. All right. None of us are really adults. We all make mistakes. We're still learning as we go. This is the test of all tests. And can you imagine being God before you created anything, right? Whatever you want to call it, the creator, God, whatever, Yahweh, Yahushua, whatever. The point is before he created everything, he must have been pretty damn lonely, like really lonely, right? If he didn't have a family, who was he talking to? All I know is he talked to the Holy Ghost and Jesus. Okay. That's got to get a little old. So what if they decided to create, a family with total different personalities and different ideas and different thoughts, and nobody's the same, with different religions and different languages and everything, and watch the kinds of traditions that they all create, the types of music they create, and the love that they create. And wouldn't that be an interesting story? Because see, I don't think God, when he existed before us, was watching TV. I think he had to create it all so he could entertain himself. And the Bible does say that he created us for his pleasure. And I believe we are all different, just like Bob, and his research that he's done is different than the research that I have done. But also we have something in common. We both want to find out what's the end goal, what's the end game, what's the truth. And since we're all different species and all different kinds of colors and creeds, that is what would please me. If I created, my own children, I would want them to give me stories that I just am blown away by, because I created them and they were able to accomplish all kinds of interesting things. And I think that's why we're all different.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that fascinates me about my grandkids, is the things they come up with.
Yeah. What is that thing about the grandparents and the grandchildren? They are just like, they're googly eyes over those kids. But when us as parents with our own kids, we're very strict and we're stern, and we're, and the grandparents are like, come on, kids, and hand them a big bag of candy and say, I'm going to get you so hyped up by the time you get home, your parents are going to hate my guts, but we're going to be best friends. Why?
Okay, time for home. Here's your bag of dextrose.
Exactly. It's like,
What would you guys suggest that people do right now to be prepared for the upcoming changes? Like, how do we go about our day without being sucked into all the drama and all the fear and all that? What do you do to get through the day? And what would you say to our viewers to help them through these times?
Yeah, Bob, you want to answer that one?
I'd say build that connection with the source, with God, and come into your own power also. We're in a time when we need people, we need healers, we need prophets, we need leaders, true leaders. And so obviously not everybody can fill all those roles, but in your own way you can do things, and I think definitely also searching out that Christ within, because remember, we are the children of God. We're the sons and daughters of man, and we're the sons and daughters of God. And so we have that inherent creator power in us. And like James was saying earlier, we're always waiting for somebody to come save us. And I think just like Neo in the Matrix, perhaps it's time to be Neo and realize who we are, and be the ones that are, does the creator expect us just to do nothing and to get steamrolled all the time? I don't really think so. I think we should do something. I think we should stand for something, and we may not have all the answers and know exactly what we should be doing or how we should be doing it, but doing something positive in this world's better than doing nothing. And even if that's just trying your best to love other people and understand other people and have patience with them. I know that's one thing I struggle with, because it is very hard in this day and age not to get irritated with society as a whole, but I also got to realize not everybody spent 30 plus years researching this stuff. So if they're just barely coming into this, it's better to encourage them and help them along than just kind of put them off because they're not worth your time or whatever. They're so far behind you on, information. I think there's little things like that we can do, and big things like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. We just need to figure out how to come together. That's the big question.
Be sure to come back for part 2 of our interview with Pastor James Carner.